Well, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. It is exactly noon. And this is our first, installment of the Roadmap Excellence series that focuses on a topic. We had an introduction the last month, but this month we're focusing on a topic. So if you can just rename me with your, I think everybody's already done the renaming. And if you would like to share your questions today as we go along in the chat, I'll be monitoring the chat. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Corey from the State Library. Um, Nice to meet you. Um, so we're just gonna get going. So for those of you who are familiar with public library standards, you'll remember the elective roadmap excellence that we spent a good amount of time designing this year. It's a really great guide. And we asked an optional question on the standards last year. Um, and we had people answer. And then we actually reached out to some of our peers today to ask them to share based on their responses. So today we'll be talking about staff development, and we have Susie McIntyre from Great Falls Public Library and Tiffany Christensen from Conrad Public Library. And I don't believe Jodi is able to log on, but if she is and I didn't see her, I apologize.
Corey, I'm here.
Oh, good. I didn't see
I
you.
was
Good.
having some internet issues, but I'm here.
You're not alone. That seems to be like a common theme today. Oh, good. I'm sorry. Um, okay, great. Uh, anyway, we have our panelists today, and they're going to just talk to you guys about staff development and some of the things that they implemented at their libraries. And you have opportunities to ask questions. I'll be watching the chat and facilitating the conversation. But we really thank you all for taking the time this afternoon as panelists and as attendees. This is being recorded, so you can come back afterwards should that be something that you're interested in. So Susie has some slides, which we did not, Susie ever prepared, which I love about her. We did not ask anybody to come prepared with slides. This Susie, I believe you have control of this slides as well. So you can navigate forward to your slides if you would like to use them. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about some of the things on the roadmap. So we'll start by asking the question, what did you choose to work on and why? I'm going to mute myself and you all can continue talking. I'll keep an eye on chat.
Okay, so are you wanting me to just go through my slides? Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Great.
So Great Falls Public Library, big shout out to our trustees and our management team, because this is not me doing this is our whole team. And so my key things are that prioritizing time for staff training is important, making it fun makes it helpful, and requiring training for everyone is really helpful. So we did two kind of major training efforts. One was to create a list of management team expectations, and the other was to do an onboarding checklist and create required trainings for all staff. The management team expectations, we actually prioritized time for some real conversations about how things are working, and had spent part of each weekly meeting having discussions. We are having a little bit of struggle with the management team. There's been a lot of change at the Great Falls Public Library, and it turns out even if change is hard, even if it's good change. So having some real conversations was challenging, but I think ultimately helpful. So we went through what expectations do we have, with one another, with frontline staff, with patrons, with volunteers. And then I did a section about my expectations of the management team, and they did a section about their expectations of me. So we put up a document. We made everybody write down 3 expectations for each of the sections. And then we went through each of the expectations, trying to figure out what that actually meant. So our working document was, if you guys can see it on this screen, was actually pretty messy, where we just kind of wrote down everything that people had to say. And it was really interesting because one of the big topics we ended up talking about is how do we support each other and have spaces to vent? Because of course, sometimes we all get upset with one another, and how do we make space for those conversations to like go talk to a colleague and figure out how best to continue forward versus stirring the pot to, you know, kind of create more drama. So we spent a long time talking about that. And then we just kind of worked that through with all the expectations that we had. I think if you did this at your library, you would have different core expectations, but they'd probably end up being a little bit similar. And the final product that we came up with was we had the main thing, like here we are civil to each other. And then we had some bullet points about what that actually looks like. And that what it actually looks like is really the most important part of this, because of course it's easy to say we're civil to each other, but then what does that actually look like? We are now discussing these quarterly at our management team meetings, and we're discussing it. I am discussing it with the management team at their individual monthly meetings. And then very helpfully, after we did our major hiring for the levy, we realized that our onboarding needed some work. So we, as a management team, really talked about what everyone needs to know and to do. And we have agreed that this is always in beta, and we are going to update the checklist as we need to. So we created individualized onboarding plans for each new employee, but they all include a staff scavenger hunt, which is really fun. Staff there's questions about people, so you actually have to get to know the people that you're working with. And then we created the checklist of everything that everybody needs to do. And we shared it with all staff. We have, we use G Suites as our email. So we have shared drives. So we are requiring that all new staff complete the full checklist. And we are requiring that all staff complete the 4 training modules. So we have on our shared drive, we have the all staff onboarding and the all staff training. And then the all shared onboarding just has all the documents, and it just really lays out, you get your email, you get access to the eSuite portal, and all the different things that we think it's important for everyone to know. This is an example of what the checklist looks like. And when you just have to initial each of them. And then like, this is an example of a memo. It's just like a 1 or 2 page document. We found that when we were hiring a bunch of people that were younger than the cohort of people that we had hired previously, that we needed to be more explicit about how people dress. And I do think this is a really important point, not to super soapbox, but when you have unwritten rules, then only people that are in the know the unwritten rules. And so if you want to, we are trying to make everything just as explicit as possible, so that if you're from a different background or a different educational level or a different area of the country, you will be able to be clued into our culture. And then like this one is one that we're working on, which is how to contact dispatch and emergency services when we dial 911 and when we dial non-emergency dispatch, and some coaching about how to actually talk to dispatch. I want my slide to go forward. And then the all staff training that we did, we have things that you read and then you have to take a quiz. When we just were having people read stuff, we found that people didn't really engage with the material as much as we wanted. So we now, like for the patron behavior, we have the quiz and then we have everybody do the patron behavior policy. And the quiz includes some long answer questions and then some true false questions. And that, you know, there's no, if you get something wrong, there's no shame or blame. It's just your manager will come back and talk to you about, to clarify whatever wasn't correct. So we do patron behavior, we do safe internet practices. The intellectual training one has the most stuff to read. So you have to read our request for reconsideration policy, request for reconsideration, and a section of our collection development policy called What We Believe. So that's like the ALA freedom to read statement, freedom to read, I forget what all is in there, and then the different forms that we use. And even our custodial staff, everyone on staff has to take all 4 of these trainings. And then we have a customer service one where we go through our mission, vision, and values, and then we lay out what is good customer service. And again, this is similar to our management team expectations. We want people to be service oriented and empowered and all these different things, but then the bullet points actually kind of lay out what does that look like. You make eye contact, you pay attention to your body language, you do the different things. So that is the end of my slides. That went more quickly than I had planned, but I'm happy to answer questions, and I want to make sure Tiffany and Jodi have time to talk.
That's great. Thank you so much, Susie. Yeah, Tiffany or Jodi, whoever wants to happen, what did you choose to work on for staff development? And why? Yeah.
I can jump in. Thank you, Susie. That was really great. I should have made some slides. I'm good at that, and I didn't. Mine is completely different, I guess, and we're a small library compared to Great Falls. We have for our library workers, not including our custodian, and we have 2.8 FTE, so we are tiny, and so a lot of our stuff isn't as complex or kind of planned out, really, even. But what we concentrate on here is just it was our goal to have all of our staff certified with the Montana State Library. And so I really, really encouraged everyone in our staff to explore Aspen, to see what different CE credits were out there, what was offered, what was available. And I not only encouraged them to just get certified, but to find things that each of our staff members were interested in. And the point of that was just to get them excited about it. And we found that we have a really fantastic team right now. Out of our 4 regular staff members, we each have our own areas of expertise, our own projects, our own programs. When one person is gone, we're either trying to cover their program or it's canceled for that particular time. And so just in general, our staff members here are encouraged to learn about something that they're interested in and then implement it into our library capacity, as long as it's following our mission. And we go over our strategic plan quite a bit and see where maybe we need to be tweaking it, or where we can add or completely change it if needed. And so right now, out of those 4 people, three of us are certified by the Montana State Library, and the one that is not, she works 8 hours a week. So it's very, very minimal. She is still doing her continuing education, and in her 8 hours, she also runs our interlibrary loan department and our seed library. She actually started the whole seed library, so that's kind of her area of expertise. And so she has very little time at work to actually concentrate on her CE credits or staff development, things like that. But she is being extremely productive in the time that she is here. Because of the way that we've gone about this, each of our staff members is highly invested in the library. You know, the longer somebody works on something, you get a better sense of understanding for your subject and a sense of pride for what you've created and what you've learned and what you can provide as a public service. And so everybody has the opportunity and is enabled to pursue something that they're interested in and become truly invested in that particular area. If one of our staff members comes across some training or a class or, you know, something provided by the Montana State Library, and they find it really interesting and think it would be helpful, usually we have them share the big points that they learned. And if it's something that we think that everybody would benefit from, we try to go back and everybody take that training or watch that video. The last one that we did was on conflict resolution and how to de-escalate things with the public. And we had 2 of our staff members take it and just said, this is fantastic. This would have helped in this situation. And so then we all went back and did that. So being able to share our training with each other and kind of train each other is helpful for our team and allows us to have our own discourse, our own problem solving as a team, and kind of gives each person a chance to be the facilitator or be the trainer at that point, or at least offer some of their opinions or some things that they have learned. And that is just our staff development kind of from the staff side. The last thing is, when a staff member becomes certified with the state library, we make a really big deal out of it. We took pictures. We print out our certificates and frame them and put them up front. And it is notified in our at our board meetings and city council meetings with our library reports. And we try to get that information out to people. And so on the other side of staff development, clearly I wanted to have an environment where the staff felt like we were investing in them and that we were taking care of them and we were allowing them a place where they could really pursue their own interests. But from the community perspective or the patron side, it's very important for me that that our staff is appropriately trained, and this even extends to volunteers. That everybody knows what they need to be doing. Everybody's doing basically quality control. What kind of service are we offering the public? If somebody walks in the library, does the person who greets them, do they know what the library offers? Are they able to successfully create a new patron account or check out books? And in our very small community and with our relatively small staff, you know, a lot of people don't understand everything that goes into librarianship and what we actually do. I think librarians get that a lot. Oh, it would just be really great if we could just read all day too. And I wanted it to be very clear that when our staff is working at the library, we are working very hard and we are accomplishing things. that you can't just walk into. You can't just hire somebody off the street and have them successfully provide this library service. And so kind of just a recognition of the public seeing, hey, actually there's a whole lot of things that this staff does for you that isn't easy. We're not just the library. We are the library, and we are offering you this this fantastic service, and it takes knowledge and education and training to be able to do that. And so kind of from a community perspective and a staff perspective, we all kind of bolster each other and help each other try to get the trainings that we need and or want. And the biggest challenge out of all of this is just time. I'm not trying to make staff members go home and try to find CE credits in their off time. We are all very busy and have things that we'd like to get done, but when there is downtime, usually we are looking for some sort of training or CE credit and something like that. And so if that means switching schedules around, covering each other's programs, covering the circulation desk for each other, so somebody can go do a training or attend something, then we have a team effort that's allowing all of our staff members to do that and pursue it. So just generally an environment of empowerment and passion, hopefully individual passion for all of our staff members here.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love hearing how different people, what people do. That's the intention of this roadmap, is that it really can be so different for everybody, but both of those are examples of excellence. And now I can't wait to hear about what they did in Red Lodge. Jodi, if you'd like to chime in, thank you.
Thank you, Corey. So let's see, here in Red Lodge, we are a little smaller than the Conrad Public Library, but I was looking at our list of participants, and we certainly have folks in this group who are in even smaller libraries than mine. So I think that's the first thing we have to acknowledge is our ability to meet these trail markers are heavily based on our budget and our staffing. And I have been here at the Red Lodge Library for 19 years now, a long time. When I started here, we had less than 1.5 FTE. And today I'm so proud because I've scrapped us up to over 2. So for the first time this year, we have a second person on staff who is working 30 hours a week, so therefore considered full-time, even if it's not a full 40 hours a week. But otherwise, in my tenure at the library, I've had part-time staff. Right now, we have 2 part-time staff that only work 10 hours a week. And so the expectations for those different positions, of course, have to be different. And getting from that 1.5 to the 2.25 that we have now really took significant changes to our budget, because the most expensive thing in our budget is our staff. So I just want to recognize that. I will mention some things today, and you might think to yourself, well, that's great, Jodi. I wish I could do that. And I do recognize how lucky I am, because I did start in a place that was different, and it has taken a lot of factors coming together to be able to progress in some of these areas. Education is very important to me. I also see the value in experience, and sometimes education is hands-on learning and experience in the job. But I also think we always have to push for learning new ideas because it's so easy to fall into, well, this is the way we've always done it. And that concept of having sacred cows in our jobs, of being unwilling to consider change. One of the ways we are able to even acknowledge that change is possible is by attending training and by talking to colleagues, visiting other libraries and seeing other ways that things are done. And then being able to open our minds to the fact that we could also make those changes. So that is definitely important. At my library, the focus of CE training has always been for me because I was the one doing the cataloging, the ordering, the programming, all of those sort of big areas. And our part-time staff, their main job really was keeping the library open and running and doing some of what we would think of as like the paraprofessional skill set as opposed to the professional skill set. And again, that's a factor of what we had available and how many hours those folks were in the building. Similar to concepts that Susie and Tiffany talked about, ideally your folks behind the desk know how to provide most of the services of the public library, even if they are not performing at that high professional level. But that does depend on their ability to receive that training and your ability as the director, excuse me, the director or the manager to have the time to train them. That is also a challenge we deal with. So I do, again, I just want to keep acknowledging the roadblocks and then maybe some ways to begin thinking of working around those roadblocks. So I try to give my part-time staff something that they have to do other than just maintain the circulation desk. And that might be being sort of the go-to person for interlibrary loan, or the go-to person for developing take and make crafts or library displays or Facebook posts, something like that. Because when we're behind the desk, there is often downtime where we could be working on other projects. It does not work with my staffing to have everyone cross-trained on everything because again, they don't spend enough time in the library for them to have that sort of broad expert knowledge of every element of the library. But ideally, we have someone in the building who can answer a lot of the questions a lot of the time. I think part of creating qualified staff is hiring the right people. And if you've started in a library and you've just inherited long-standing staff, you might not have the opportunity to do that. If you're like me though, and you stick around for upwards of 20 years, you'll have a chance to hire new staff. And one of the things I'm always looking for in advertising a job and in interviewing is customer service skills. It's one of the things we pride ourselves on because while small libraries have disadvantages, we are able to really know our communities. We're able to
Jodi?
Let's give it a
No?
second and see if the internet catches up with Jodi.
Okay, yeah.
part of
it's
our
okay.
job is providing therapy across the circulation desk, similar to what a bartender does or maybe a hairdresser does. We really connect with our community, and that is a gift. So I think small libraries have the ability to really rock the trail marker for customer service. Did somebody want to say something? I heard a voice.
No, we had a little technical difficulty. You got dropped for just a second,
Oh,
but
shoot. I'm
that's
continuing
okay.
to have unstable internet. We're having a big winter storm in Red Lodge today, um, which is, probably impacting that. I'm so sorry. Let me
That's
see.
okay. That's okay.
Okay.
You were talking about the benefits of small libraries and their excellent public service when you came back. I'm not sure where,
Yes. Yes.
but
So
yes,
I think that's the one I would challenge everyone on these trail markers. If you're thinking, well, I can't do this, I can't do this, we don't have the budget, we don't have the staff. Um, Even in small libraries, and especially in small libraries, we have the ability to really focus on customer service and um, and excel in customer service. So that's one that I would challenge you, um, regardless of your library size or your library budget, to really focus on the customer service element. Um, One thing I'm take pride in is that in my time at the library, I rewrote, well, I think I wrote for the first time because they hadn't been drafted, but I have position descriptions for each tier of jobs. So in my library, we have the kind of the low tier, you are called a library assistant, and those are my 10-hour-a-week folks. And then we don't have this position currently funded at the library, but we have in the past had assistant librarians coming in at that sort of like mid-tier position. So they might be hired and entrusted with cataloging, or they might be entrusted with programming, something like that at that level. And then for the first time now, I have a position called librarian. And that is a person where we had higher expectations for their education and skill set coming into the position. And then the next, you have me at library director. We don't have the budget for an assistant library director, so that's not one we have in our current tier. But in the assistant librarian and librarian tiers, there's 1 and 2. So you could be an assistant librarian 1, and that's where we would hire you. But then if you stay on the job for 2 years and you earn your certification, we commit to promoting you to an assistant librarian 2. And with that promotion would come an increase to your grade on our pay matrix. And you would then be making more money. So that's a way we've been able to acknowledge that if you make that investment to this position, working in this organization and doing that certification, myself and the library board recognize that you will have achieved a higher level and we are able to pay more money. Again, that takes more money in your budget to commit to that. But if that's something you're able to do, I think it makes a nice carrot for employees to stick around and stay invested in the job and work towards this higher goal. You just have to make sure your budget can accommodate if they do this. So be careful about that. Um, I think that I have always held and will always make sure that if I am asking library staff to attend training, they are paid during those hours they're attending the training, and the costs of that training, whether it's mileage, um, or registration for that training, is covered by the library's budget. I think that is very important to do. Again, your budget may be limited, that may be a challenge, but if you can strive towards that goal, also for yourself as library director, if you are attending training, that should be covered. You should be paid for the time you spend in training, and your costs that you accrue should also be covered. I started at this library at a time when me attending training potentially meant that the library would not be open, because there's only so many employees that can run the library when you're gone. And so this is a huge factor to consider when you're looking at your ability to attend training. And so I just want to recognize that. I am now at a position where it's a lot easier for us to attend training and still keep the desk covered. But that is something that you have to decide in prioritizing the value of training. Would that mean that you would limit hours that you were open to the public? And just know that even in large libraries, they sometimes close their building for a day for staff training. So you can do that. It is okay when prioritizing training to do that. I mean, I hate to do it. So I'm not saying everyone should do what I do, but keep in mind that even large library systems do recognize the importance of training by sometimes reducing library hours. I think that's everything that I really wanted to cover. Again, one of the marks that I'm able to do now is that during all library hours, paid staff are available to assist users, but there was a time when I could not always do that. It was never long, but occasionally I did have to have someone, can you keep this library open because I have to go run do something. So I recognize that that can be a challenge. If I continued to have all the money I could have, I would push harder for my staff to all receive certification. We are not quite there yet. One of the roadblocks to that is probably really the training that's available, because a lot of the training is focused on library administration, and my staff person who fills my librarian role right now, she's not really interested in attending training that doesn't apply to her job. And because she doesn't do children's programs, specifically story time, she looks at some of the training options and thinks, well, this doesn't really apply to me. This doesn't really apply to me. But one of the things I was able to get my staff invested in this year is the, what is it called? Big Talk for Small Libraries. That's a one-day conference. And it's really geared towards small libraries, so it's a little easier to justify that. There's been a question in chat about interlibrary loan staff. So let's see. Libraries always have just one staff deal with ILL. Tiffany says we used to share the ILL responsibility, but found that fewer mistakes and miscommunication were made when one person was dedicated to it. Starless says we have one person deal with ILL. I am her backup. Oh, Kara's put in the chat that big talk that I was talking about. It takes place over one day, and they just released the recordings from that. If you guys want to check that out, it's totally free to attend. Interlibrary loan at my library. I usually am involved to some degree and have one staff person involved. It is a challenge. Tiffany referenced fewer mistakes and miscommunications. Sometimes if you have too many cooks during the interlibrary loan pot, it does get a little mishmashed. So, but that will vary for every library. Oh, Susie. So Great Falls has a main person who manages ILL, but other staff can provide backup. All requests are handled by the reference desk staff. And Heather said, we have one main staff member do it, but my staff is cross-trained if they are sick, etc. Yeah, I think that's all wise. All right, I think that was everything that I wanted to make sure to say. So Corey, maybe you want to take over monitoring the chat?
Thank you. Thank you, Jodi. Great. Well, I really appreciate everybody sharing. When you guys are all talking and I was looking at the roadmap, it really is amazing. And Chloe threw the roadmap link in the chat. It really is amazing how diverse you can make these markers to your library. Like if you have 1.5 staff or if you have a big staff, like it was really impressive to see the diversity of accomplishments. Anyway, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say there. I don't think I need to read all this ILL stuff out loud. If you have questions about ILL, put it in the chat. Did anybody have any specific questions for Great Falls or Red Lodge or Conrad for our librarians about what they implemented? If you're interested in implementing anything similar, they can impart their wisdom on us right now. Do's and don'ts. If y'all wanted to share, actually, if the three of you wanted to share, like what's your piece of advice that you would give other libraries if they wanted to try doing what you did. What's your one piece of advice?
Well, I'm just going to throw out that I'm happy to share our checklists and our memos and any of the pieces that people want. I know those take a long time to create, and then it might be a little bit easier if people can just modify them. It is really helpful for us when somebody asks for the 17th time how many breaks they get, and we can just say, there's a memo on that in the all staff. Let me tell you the answer, and then you can have this for reference. So I just think having one centralized place where that institutional knowledge is kind of shared and everybody can look stuff up.
That is a very kind offer. Thank you, Susie. There's some people in the chat who are interested in that. Any advice or anything else on what you did? Tiffany, I have to say, I really love that you celebrate. I like that one on the roadmap, celebrate certification. I think that's a good way to recognize an accomplishment. So, yeah.
There is a question about, is CPR and first aid training an appropriate training? I am, from my perspective, from the perspective of Susie Mcintyre, CPR and first aid are very appropriate. We also offer our staff mental health first aid training, which is a full day training that's really helpful for dealing with people who may or may not have mental illnesses. I think CPR and first aid and mental health first aid are all core things for anyone in public service.
I would agree with that. I think that's a good public service.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that as well. We did the drug overdose training and anything that is going to help somebody who could potentially walk in your doors. I think that would be helpful.
And Starla just talked about quarterly staff training meetings because nobody's ever all there at once. And Great Falls Public Library is going to start implementing that. We are going to have our first all staff meeting on April 23rd, I think it is. So I think that's a really good idea.
Jodi's comment about bigger libraries that close for training. I wanted to speak just a moment to that. I formerly worked at Bozeman Public Library, and we had our board approve 2 days of closures for training per year to demonstrate that we take our job seriously and that we close for training, that we can better serve our public. And sometimes, right, that training can be a CPR training, and sometimes it's bigger picture training. And then we all try to spend time, doing trainings. It could be a reader's advisory training, something like that. But boards can and will approve that time if possible. It is, it can be a bummer to close for your public, but I also think it sends a message about taking it seriously. I don't know if I explained that well, but I wanted to touch on that as well. Does anybody want to talk? Does anybody of our presenters want to talk about how meeting this roadmap marker was valuable for your board and your library. Can anybody speak to that for a minute?
Well, this is Jodi again, and I'll just say my board is very aware of the importance of the library staff to the quality of library services. And they recognize that the staff is in so many ways what the community thinks of when they think of the library. So if they have a fond association with the library, if they are prone to support the library, should we have a ballot issue related to the library, or should we have a call for support for the library with our local government? The board recognizes that it's the staff that sets that tone, that puts that impression, that gives people that impression. You know, people in our community have a fondness for the library building. And of course, they love the programs we have, and they love the materials they can check out. But at the end of the day, the staff is who you're really thinking of. It's who you associate with the library. And I really appreciate that my board recognizes that and acknowledges that customer service is one of our top priorities. And that good customer service requires a good staff. And so I do feel like my board really supports me and also all of the library staff. And I think that is important. I think it does make a big difference that they support that and that they get that.
One thing Great Falls Public Library does that might not be as appropriate for smaller libraries, because maybe your board already knows all of your staff, but we have two staff people in frontline staff people introduce themselves at the beginning of every board meeting, and we just kind of go all the way through the staff. Once we get done once, then we do it again, and so our staff talk about what they do, and the board can ask them questions. And I feel like that's been really helpful to have the board really understand what each of the different people do. And that has helped the board. My board is also really supportive of staff training.
That's a great thing, Susie. I love that.
Great. And we also had a comment from Starla. My board is very supportive of staff and supports efforts to train and keep them uplifted and organized. I think that's excellent. I'm glad to hear that from so many people. Excellent. Anybody else have questions? Any comments you'd like to make about staff development as it relates to the roadmap? Who's a Carn person and who's a table and cart person? I'm a Carn person.
Coley, one thing that occurs to me is because we do have as one of the trail markers for staff development, everyone receives good quality customer service at the library because library staff complete customer service training. Like, are we making an effort to make sure that in the state libraries training that's being provided, that's fairly accessible or free, do we have particular trainings available related specifically to customer service?
I want to just second that, Jodi, because I feel like that's super important. And what we found when we were trying to talk about this is because we had been saying we provide good customer service. Good customer service is important, but even our managers didn't, until we talked it through, like, what does good customer service actually look like, I think is a really key thing that we don't stress enough. I might have cut somebody off that was trying to talk right when I started talking.
Well, yep, Chloe added into the chat um some good specific training places. And Starla just added that staff development in her area requires, Starla, can you type in the chat where you are? Requires creativity. Often the person strong in media is light on. Oh, I lost it in the chat. Sorry. Light on reading and writing. We need both, so I work with people's strengths. So that's excellent. Hot Springs, Montana. Ooh, fun. Well, oh, it's always nice to talk about staff development with your peers. We really, really appreciate Susie and Jodi and Tiffany joining us to share with us today some of the things that y'all did. Like I said before, the difference in what you can do for staff development, it's really inspiring to hear different strategies and implementations. We've got some upcoming events, and they're not all ours, but the next in this series is April 15th, and it is going to be discussing board development. You'll also hear from some of your peers then. We hope to see you all at the MLA conference in Bozeman, March 26th through 29th. There will be a lot of MLA presenters. We always love chatting with you all, so please come say hi. And then please check Aspen for updates and additions to the event calendar. We have tons of great webinars and learning opportunities to connect with your peers, opportunities to connect with the library community across Montana and beyond. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to your consultant. We love hearing from you. If you would be so kind as to fill out this evaluation survey, we always love to get your feedback and hear about what we could do differently or change or what you loved or whatever you want to share with us. You can use this QR code or follow that web address. Big thanks again to Susie and Jodi and Tiffany for sharing their expertise. Huge thanks to Colette, who puts these slides together and runs the show. Yeah, I don't know if we want to stop the recording, and if anybody wants to chat off, you're good to go. If you have questions about credit, Colette can answer your questions, and she said she will put all of these links together as well. So
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, and just if you have any questions, have any trouble getting credits, just let me know or submit a help desk ticket. We will have a recording available later today, and as we gather resources, I'll just add those to the Aspen event that's linked in this this event today. So thanks again, and like Corey says, we appreciate your time, and we can't thank our panelists enough for just being able to provide such a rich variety of situations and ideas for us to be able to think about how do we both develop and support staff, but then that acknowledgement of the accomplishment too, I think is really, really critical. And so thank you so much to our panelists.